Okay, so before you freak out at the title of the video, because you're a twihard who still stands the series after like hundreds of years, it's been less time than that, but whatever. I'm not saying Twilight is bad, I'm just saying that this book is much, much worse. And I'm gonna tell you why. So here's the thing. I don't know why I'm reviewing this book for you guys. I just read it and it was a giant train wreck, and there's just some things about this book that evoked very Twilight things. And I was laughing to myself because I was like, wow, this book is so terrible. Why is it so bad? We already had Twilight before this came out, because I was under the assumption this came out in 2013. It did not. It came out in 1992. So I wanted to do a review for you guys because this book took the bad, like really trashy vampire romance to like a whole other level. And I think you guys need to enjoy it because I enjoyed making fun of it while I read it. So I wanted to share with you guys my thoughts on A Taste of Blood Wine by Frida Warrington. So let's just go ahead and dive into this review, shall we? Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Maddie if you're new here. Hope your day's going well. So, I don't know where to fucking start with this book, in all honesty. I should probably start at the beginning. Maybe not that far back. As you guys probably know if you've been on the channel for a little while, I'm currently writing a novel that has vampires in it. And I wanted some vampire books to kind of get me back into the mood because I've started revisions on my novel. And they suck, if you're wondering. But I saw this book at the library. The cover, as you can see, if you can see it, is serving some real vibes here. We got some serious vibage going on. Did it deliver the vampire vibage that I wanted? Absolutely fucking not. So what this book is about is basically three characters. We've got some really important ones. So we've got Carl. He's a vampire, but also I kept just calling him Carl. Basically, he's a llama that hungers for hands. And if you don't know that reference, you're too young to be on the internet. And then we've got Christian, the vampire that created Carl. Basically, if you took Klaus from the Vampire Diaries and mixed him with Eli from Vicious, but took all of the good parts out of both of those characters, you get Christian. And then we've got Charlotte from Charlotte's Web, who has a really terrible case of not like other girls-itis. So those are our three characters. Bear in mind, this book actually came out in 1992, so there's a lot of things about this book that are just not fucking good because of the time period it was written in, and it also has a 3.72 rating on Goodreads, but it's because the re-release of this book must have either taken it off of Goodreads because there's only like 874 ratings. So if this is your favorite book, I'm so surprised because I don't think really anybody has read this book, and if you have and you loved it, I'm sorry, I am going to tear it to pieces in this review, so you should probably leave now if you have problems with people doing that to your favorite books. Just so you know. This book is set in the 1920s, but is there any reference to the 1920s other than cars? No. Basically, it's one of the weirdest things that I've ever read. So the beginning of the book starts with Christian and Carl battling it out on the battlefields of World War I like little insensitive shits. Carl is basically like, "You're not my real dad," to Christian, and Christian's just like, "But I want you to be my homie, because I'm a psychopath." And, you know, Carl's just like, "I'm not about that life. Thanks, bro. Go away." And they mention a girl named Alona, and Christian's like, "I could hurt Alona," and Carl's like, "I'm not gonna actually tell you who Alona or what the Alona is because that would spoil the poorly constructed plot. So we'll save that for later." Keep it in mind, keep it in mind. And in the beginning of the book, you actually find out that vampires in this book can go into an alternate reality called the Crystal Ring. I kept calling it a cock ring in my head because that's funny. But it's really stupid and probably the most ridiculous piece of world building I've ever read, and I am counting it as worse than sparkly vampires in Twilight. Like, sparkly vampires I can get behind, vampires that can go into an alternate dimension where they can travel and teleport. No, just fucking no. Just no. Okay, so flash forward, it's 1923, and we are following Charlotte, who is a part of the Neville family. This is a very interesting book because we actually follow the Neville family for pretty much the whole book as they kind of get introduced to these vampires. And Charlotte is our main character, our heroine in this book. She has two sisters, a brother, an aunt, and a dad that all kind of just don't like hanging out with her because Charlotte's fucking obnoxious. She's so irritating. All she wants to do is do her science experiments with her dad and really not talk to anyone in the outside world. She's just kind of a pain in the ass. But her aunt is like, you have to do a season, which is basically Old English version of Tender. And she's like, but why? And her aunt's like, you need a husband. And she's like, but why? And her aunt's like, you're a flat tire, you need to get a husband. Her aunt's fucking savage. Like, she's one of the most ridiculous characters in the book. And then her younger sister, Maddie, is an airhead dingbat socialite nonce. Not fucking kidding you. And so Maddie is like, oh my god, there's this guy and he's so cute and he should come over and he should like go to daddy's lectures because daddy's a scientist and you're a scientist and we should have him over. And so Charlotte is like, no, I don't want strangers in our house. Strangers are nasty and now I have to go fold 40 napkins for 40 hours because of this conversation. That's a little paraphrase, but Charlotte is like basically agoraphobic and has intense social anxiety issues, which was really interesting to see in a book that was written in the 90s. But at the same time, her family treats her like absolute garbage for it, and that really kind of sucked. So we've got Charlotte, the main character, we've got Maddie, her younger sister, and we've got Fleur. They are basically the discount dollar store version of Pride and Prejudice, if you get my drift. Charlotte spots Carl, who is, you know, hanging out with their family, which is very strange to me. And he spots Charlotte, and Charlotte spots him, and Charlotte has the same reaction that Edward has when he first sees Bella. Basically looks like she's gonna be constipated and vomit and all sorts of fun stuff. But since this is a romance, they actually get to talking and they're like, hey, you're cute. I like you, because there's no fucking groundwork at all. It's like they have one conversation and all of a sudden she wants to bone him. It's ridiculous. So meanwhile, Christian, you remember the guy that created Carl? He's like, hey, I think Carl's been gone long enough. Pierre, who is my favorite character and the only character that fucking matters in this entire book, go find Carl for me. Pierre goes and finds Carl, the llama that hungers for hands, and he's like, damn, dude, you already in love with this girl? You've known him for like a week. You need to slow the fuck down. And Pierre being a fucking vampire, meets Maddie in the garden when she went off to look for Carl, because she's still in love with Carl, and fucking bites the shit out of her. Pierre just like totally nearly kills her. And so Charlotte and her family are like, who would have done this to our younger sister? I don't know. And Charlotte goes to Carl and is like, hey, my family thinks you might have maybe almost killed my younger sister. And then she fucking sleeps with him. Like any, you know, sensible adult female in the 1920s. What? And then I read the worst sex scene I have ever read in my life. Ever. Like, took that award. So I'm gonna read this off of my computer, but the words that are not allowed to be used in a sex scene from now on: dew, demon, a serpent piercing her, a sword of flame, forbidden, dark, fruit. And so they have sex, and then when they're done, he's like, I hope you weren't sorry. And she's like, I could never be sorry. And I was like, bitch, you're 10 pages ago, you were like agoraphobic, and you just got dicked down by a vampire. You're gonna be sorry. So Charlotte is already in love with this guy, and he's like, we can never get married. And she's like, why not? You've got magic fruit dick, so obviously I'm in love with you. And he's like, I can't. And she's like, are you married? And he's like, no. And she's like, are you a monk? And he's like, whoa, escalation. No, I'm not, but we just can't get married. And then there's like a subplot where she's supposed to get married to this other dude, and he's like, yeah, we can commit adultery. You cool with that? And she's like, sure, whatever, you got magic dick, so maybe we should just do that. And then they continue to have sex for like a week after this. They live in a house with a whole bunch of people, and they continue to have sex for every day of the week, and no one catches them. Like, what? And so Pierre shows up again because he got, like, I don't remember what happened to Pierre, but Pierre shows back up again, and he walks into the Neville house and he's like, hi, hello, I want to talk to Carl. Carl's like, this is my friend, I'll deal with him. And everybody's like, okay, he's fucking weird, but whatever. And then, so Carl goes off and talks to Pierre, and then Charlotte's brother, David, sees Carl bite the shit out of Pierre's neck. And David is like, hey, Charlotte, your new friend is kind of weird, and like maybe we shouldn't hang out with him anymore. Doesn't think that he's a vampire, thinks maybe he's gay, but like doesn't understand what happens. Like, saw him bite his neck, blood dripping down. Literally, this is the dumbest book ever. Like, the people are confronted with vampires, like actual vampires. Bella Swan is smarter than all of the characters in this book. That's saying something. And then, so Carl has to go off because, you know, Pierre's causing some shit and Christian's mad. And Charlotte's like, if this guy doesn't come back, I'm gonna go cray. She makes Bella Swan look well-adjusted. It's ridiculous. She's only known this guy for maybe a month. And so Carl comes back because I don't even remember why he comes back, but he does. And they're like, hey, you're weird. And one guy attacks Carl, and Carl's like, oh shit, I'm a vampire, bites the shit out of this human guy's neck in front of like 10 people. They're like, whoa, what the fuck? And then the teleportation thing doesn't work, so Carl takes Maddie hostage. Charlotte's like, no, I'll take me hostage. And he's like, yeah, sure. And so Charlotte and him shack up in like this abandoned haunted house, which is stupid in a subplot that I'm not even gonna get into. And just fucking the entire time they're stuck in this house, he's like, yeah, I didn't really need to take you hostage. I could have just left and killed everybody, but I wanted to tell you what I am because Lerv, obviously. So this is when we get the talk. Not about sex, mind you, because they've already done that. The vampire talk. And this is the part of the book where I was like, why is there so many fucking references to Twilight in this? There was a lamb-wolf analogy. There were several just weird things that I was like, this seems so close to Twilight. I don't know if like Stephanie Meyer read this book and was like, yeah, Edward came to me in a dream. Bitch, shut the fuck up. This was just the weirdest thing that I've ever read in my life. It took... Sorry, my timer was going off. This is the weirdest book. It also had really weird prose too. There was weird juxtapositions, like he stared at her intently but distracted, and he kissed her gently but fervid. Like those are two fucking different things. You cannot have both. This is not like an El Dorado situation where you can have both of those in the same sentence. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And so we find out about the Alona girl and the vampire talk, and Carl's like, yeah, Alona's really important to me because she's my daughter. Yeah, so Alona is a vampire. She grew up after Carl, got turned into a vampire. She turned like 22, and Carl's like, hey, you know how you're gonna die someday? I'm actually gonna not let you be human, and I'm gonna forcibly change you into a vampire. Great dude, guys, right? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, what the shit? And so Carl and Charlotte leave the abandoned house and just escape to the city, and Carl's like, hey, meet me at noon, and Charlotte's like, yeah, I'll do that, and then she almost oversleeps it, and then she sees him talking to a woman. I wonder who it could be, and then she dicks off to her sister's house, Fleur, the other sister. And then she's like, hey, I gotta hang out here. And Fleur's like, cool, I'm a cokehead. Because that makes complete fucking sense in the 1920s. You know, vampires and cokeheads just hanging out. I don't know why I did this. That was weird. And so she goes to Fleur's house, and Fleur is a socialite. She does a lot of drugs, and not only that, but she has a lot of vampire friends that she doesn't actually know are vampires. And then her husband actually creeps on Charlotte, gives Charlotte to a pair of vampires to suck her blood, and then Carl shows up and was like, I sensed the vampires, and I sensed you were in danger, so I came to save you. And Charlotte, being a fucking crazy person, is like, yeah, you know, I almost died and got raped and, you know, got attacked by vampires, but who's the fucking bitch you were talking to? And of course, Carl's like, my fucking daughter, you psychopath. So Alona shows up to this party, right, that they're having at the Fleur cokehead house with all the vampires and shit. And Alona is a bitch for no reason at all other than the fact that she's got massive daddy issues. She rips Fleur's throat out. Yeah, so she rips Fleur's throat out. She's killing people left and right. David, Charlotte's brother, shows up and chops the fucking head off of Carl. Like his head, not anything down below. His legitimate head. And at some point in the vampire talk, Carl told Charlotte the only way to kill a vampire is to actually chop off their head. And so we're about 200 pages to the end of the book, maybe 100 pages to the end of the book, and the love interest gets fucking murdered. Not expecting that at all. Like, not... Whoa, holy shit, what did this book just do? Oh my god, that was so fucking cool. You would think it would be cool, but this ain't it, Chief. We still got some more to go. So remember Christian, the kind of crazy creator of all the vampires? Yeah, so he really fucking loves Carl. And so he manages to regenerate Carl's body from his head down. I know, what in the fucking Deadpool hell is this? Like, I just don't fucking get why this book was written this way. Like, no. If you ever wanted to know what happens to Deadpool when he regenerates, apparently they just grow an entire new body. But yeah, and I'm just gonna stop it there. I don't even know how or why I'm doing this review, but I am. And I just wanted to like give you guys my kind of in the moment thoughts because I wrote a lot of notes and I was just like, cannot believe the train wreck that this book is. It was beautiful and amazing at how fucking terrible this book was. And there were so many interesting things that I was like, I recognize Twilight in it. I recognize the Vampire Diaries. But this book is so fucking bad that I just could not understand why other books came out of it. Like, I was like, who read this and was like, oh my god, this is fucking amazing. Like, I'm so happy that Carl is in my life. But yeah, so I don't really have any thoughts on it other than that it was hilariously terrible. If you guys liked this review, if this ends up actually on the internets at some point, I'm so glad, and I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what books you want me to read and review next in the comments down below. I'm gonna go now, guys. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Bye!